What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Boyce, and you're here for another episode of the Facts Project podcast. Today, I have two very special guests. I'm happy that they're here because we're right on the cusp of San Diego Comic-Con, so it is also very difficult to get a lot of guests during this time frame. So I'm happy for the both of them being here because around August 3rd is the final order cutoff for this brand new imprint for IDW Crime, and that is this title called Fixation. Fixation issue 1 is going to be released in stores on September 9th. So I have Savannah Mayer, am I saying that?
Mayor.
Savannah Mayer, and I have Amy Chase. Thank you both for being here.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for being interested in chatting with us. Because
Absolutely.
it's mostly been just the two of us going back and forth like crazy over this book.
Well, I gotta say, between all 42 pages of this, I have basically concocted a slew of questions that I believe that I have to get answers for.
All right. Well, I'm excited. I'm ready to dive in.
Okay. All right. So, well, I'll start with you, Amy. Now, Fixation, of course, combines, of course, crime, horror, and better yet, fandom culture. At what point did you realize that this story needed all three genres, all three themes, rather than just the one?
You know, I mean, that's a great question. To start with, of course, IDW, when they approached with this concept, because they did approach me with the bare bones of like, hey, we're seeking to do titles like this for a crime imprint. That was kind of the big forefront, the guiding star of like, we're doing crime. And I've had the privilege of doing crime books before. I did a backup for Chip Zdarsky's Newburn, which was actually one of my first published pieces ever. And I also did something for Iron Circus's Perfect Crime Party. But both of those were like crime books with like a very lighthearted fantasy twist to them, and they were both heists, which is very different than a murder mystery. But I also have a background in horror, and so like I also was very early published in Archie horror stuff. I love horror books, and I think there's a natural evolution. A lot of people think that like there's too much overlap, or like a crime book can easily become horror. But I think obviously depending on where you're standing when the crime happens, like it can be horrifying. It can be very scary. And so the final element of that, of course, the something that existed from the beginning was this idea of vampire fandom. And very specifically, it was fandom, and it was for a vampire franchise. And if you're watching the video and not just listening passively, I've got Buffy right behind me. I'm a huge vampire horror fan as well. But also in the notion of fandom, that kind of married it neatly with like, okay, well, how do we bring in horror elements without making this like just a schlocky slasher? That's really hard to say. But also like again, have these boundaries that are established and lines that need to be crossed for it to be considered also crime. It's not a procedural necessarily, but there are elements of the crime reflected throughout. And so I really think there's like this nice tightrope balance where it's like we have some horror elements and there's a fandom, but there's no real vampires and it's not supernatural, but you've got those elements of style while you then remember that this is like a crime, this is happening in a real world, despite how much the characters want to retreat into the fiction, and the fiction kind of blurs the lines then of what's real and what's, just the movie.
Excellent. Now, Savannah, now pretty much as far as like the collaboration between the two of you, how did this essentially start? Did it start with Amy reaching out to you? Was it you reaching out to Amy? But like, you know what? I know that you're free type deal. Like, this is the type of story that I basically have going on. How did this happen?
Oh, so I think I was approached by my editor, Riley Farmer first. And she was just like, hey, like I've seen that you can do like sort of gothic historical horror like I did with my debut with Sleepy Hollow with Casey Gilly. And she was like, can you do modern? And I was like, yeah, I could do modern. I have like Magnus Archives fan art that I've done. I was in a Monster Hearts game that I did art for, of like my own characters and stuff. And I sent that along, like, okay, like here. And she's like, would you be interested in doing like an alternative cover for this like Twilight AU kind of thing? I'm like, hell yeah, I would love to do that. And then it's like, would you like to do character designs for it? I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I'm like, wait a minute, character designs? Like, doesn't the interior artist do the character designs? And then Riley was like, you're the comic book artist. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll take it. Like, I love the plot. I would love to do that.
Right.
And so like we already had like an email thread going of just like all of us talking. And then I think I asked Amy, like, do you have a Discord? And then like the onslaught of memes began, where we were just talking nonstop about like this character that, and just sending each other like joke things, and just got really into how the characters worked, like how they thought about things, and like just even down to like what they would wear in their fashion sense.
I gotta say, because the character designs that you did probably for every single person in this book that I've read already within issue one, these 40 pages have been phenomenal. Like from
Oh,
day to
thank you.
day. Yeah, yeah, for sure. From Miguel style with the wrapped hands and everything like that.
Yeah,
Uh Karrah with with basically like the pigtails. Most people
yeah.
don't do hair that well.
Oh,
And
thank you. Yeah,
I gotta say, you did an excellent job with that.
yeah.
For
No,
sure.
Karrah is one of my favorite. I had a few different iterations for each character, but Karrah just like formed immediately. I knew exactly what she wanted, what I wanted her to look like, what her fashion sense was, like how she spoke and how she like carried herself. I love Karrah so much.
Excellent.
I was gonna
Excellent.
say I've had the privilege of seeing all the alternate versions of these characters, which like again that's a fandom thing with like alternate universe. Like I know the version of Taylor that didn't end up on the page, and there's all these different styles. But I'm very visual, and so like when I know who I'm working with for art, I will go and read as much as I can of their work. And thankfully, I was already reading Sleepy Hollow. Casey is also a friend of mine and had been texting me about how cool Savannah's work was, and she was like, "You're gonna have to watch out for them. Like this style is so unique. It is so cool." And so I did a little bit of scripting and plotting before Savannah was coming in and doing the character designs. And as soon as we got those designs and with Riley narrowed in on which version is the ideal look for each character, suddenly I understood everybody so much better and like could then it almost felt like I was directing actors in the space as I was writing because I was like, I know how clearly like they had such a strong visual identity and Karrah originally was like a friend in the chair. Like she was a computer long distance friend who they didn't meet in
Oh, okay.
person. And I'm so glad because as soon as Savannah turned in that design for her, I was like, oh my God, we have to have her here
Yes,
now. We
yes.
have to put her in the book, like, and not just be, your long distance friend on a computer screen.
For sure. Now, the solicitation describes the murder as the a crime of passion, a decade in the making. Without any spoilers,
Mhm.
how did you balance the mystery with the emotional motivation behind the crime?
Okay.
I think with if I can jump in on that, like with
Yeah, please.
fandom elements, you know, people get so passionate like and I work in pop culture and so like you just see how badly
Yeah.
people love things and that's not the crime in this book. The crime is not loving something too much. I am the last person who's ever going to talk bad on like using fandom as a space to connect with other people and share your enthusiasm and sometimes maybe be a little too enthusiastic about it and like the title of the book is Fixation. It actually had a different title beforehand, but we went through some iterations and Fixation was the good one.
Yeah.
Or they were all good, but Fixation was the one that stuck. But it's a shortened version of what a phrase that is around in fandom a lot is hyperfixation. Like you zero in on this. And so that built like a really logical space to the crime of like this is something that somebody, you know, has interacted with and something about it changed their life so fundamentally that they have laser focused on this. And when you get so intense about it, like you get defensive, you get aggressive, and sometimes people mistake that as love. Oh, I'm willing to fight other people because I love this so much. And
Mhm.
so, you know, we didn't want to again come out swinging and say like if you love a movie, that's very bad. Like because everybody
We'd be
has
the
something that
last
they're a
person to
fan
say
of.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got my start in like writing other because I've done a lot of licensed properties. I started with fan fiction. Like again, like that's a training ground for a lot of
Right.
people who don't have the resources to do other stuff. Like I'm just going to take characters who already exist and I understand their emotional components and I'll do stuff with them and I can train myself on that.
Yeah.
Um and so again, taking that into the space of crime felt very natural because you just have to push some of the logic of like okay so like stalking cyber stalking is a crime and people are inspired to follow their favorite actors and people get in fights with other people online. People try to call the cops on each other in the most extreme cases of like even with like video games like people when they do like SWAT calls and stuff.
True.
And so it's this idea that like we've got someone who is mistaking their love or mistaking their cruelty for love, and that's
Yeah.
where the emotional, because then we get to see the people who are, benefited by being excited and finding their community. And there's always going to be jealousy and competition, and the fact that actually we added in that Taylor and Karrah won a competition, or a sweepstakes, moreover it was kind of a random drawing, that creates that jealousy that again kind of seeds the emotional undercurrent, I think, of the basis of the crime.
Yeah, you see that indefinitely in the like the signing because they were basically the first ones to get there, and it was like,
Yeah.
what did they do
Yeah.
so much better than all of us? We're all sitting here in line. They get to go in first.
Mhm.
What's the reason for
Hmm.
this? So
And that idea of like, are you lucky or are you special comes up actually throughout
right.
all three issues. So that's something that, like, if people clued into that, where people are like debating whether or not Taylor is special for being
Mhm.
the winner or she's just some random person, like that's actually a really important theme in the book as well.
Definitely. So I like the that you said the word hyperfixation because it's a perfect segue. Savannah.
Mhm.
Um, crime comics rely heavily on visual clues.
Mhm.
Were there moments where you deliberately hid information in the artwork for like attentive readers like myself?
If you're referring to if you zoom in the Kakashi in one of the crowds, then yes,
Yeah.
yes. I was just like, again, like talking to Amy nonstop and just like how many Easter eggs can we throw in for like the specifically the vampire fandom of just like how many Twilight jokes can we throw in? How many Buffy jokes can we throw in? Like, if you zoom in close, like you like notice that character on that like the person that drew their shirt and like be like, oh my God, that's that character. Like it's just like little treats for people like in the know. And we really just like this is a celebration of fandom and we wanted to really just honor the fans and let them in on the joke. Like it's like the fandom itself, like Blood Mountain, which is the fandom in Fixation. It's like we get a look at all the different kinds of fans, like Taylor, where Blood Mountain really like saved her, like from like a lot of hard things and like
Yeah.
helped her process and like something she could continually go back to. And that's very relatable of like someone who's been through bad moments and like returning to something that's always been there for them and being able to find comfort for that. But then you have like the mean fans who are just like, oh, I love this, but I'm gonna be mean to you over it. It's just like, are you really a fan then?
Hmm.
So it's just like it was a lot of fun to work on.
Definitely.
Well,
Now,
and there
oh,
there
go
were
ahead.
a couple places just and this and I won't even say who or what it was, but there were a couple of moments where our editor did have to say, "Hey, let's actually pull back some of the detail because it might
Yeah.
give away too soon who did what."
Yeah, I had
So
to be
there
careful.
were some of those moments. But again, that just is a testament to how much detail Savannah put in, not only to like clothing and physicality, but like expression work and just all of these little moments. Like those panels are so sumptuous. And then with James Fenner's colors underneath, like I've seen both versions with and without color, and the colors blow my mind because that's also, James adding story details of like the emotion or the, even just how cold the night is when we transition into those dark time scenes. But like, yeah, Riley was also very attentive to like this is a visual mystery as much as it is a narrative one. And so you have to be careful about, you want to make sure that the correct symbols and icons and characters are visible and available so that people don't, it's not like, I promise it's not going to be someone who just showed up in the third issue that is
Yeah.
the culprit. Like it is someone that may or may not be introduced earlier, but it's not going to be like page 10 we meet the real killer who you've never
Right.
seen before, because that's like
Yeah.
that's not a plot twist. But this is, yeah, we Riley was very good at keeping us on like, don't give away too much just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will
And
say
oh,
also, sorry, just to interject
no,
really
no,
quick,
go ahead.
like, I've been thinking about this a lot with like horror movies or TV shows. Music is a big cue of just like, oh, like, this is a red herring, be wary of this character. It's not actually the killer you find out later on, or just like there's like this tension building and building and building, and then it snaps, and that's where the horror really comes in. A lot of it is informed by the music. And in comics, we don't have music, so how do we inform like like but in like the subtle clues and the beats and the tension. And I think a lot of that comes through with color because it's a form of storytelling. And it like sort of teaches you where to look and like where your eye to land and like what to like keep in the back of your head that will come up later on.
Well, it's funny that you do say that because, the movies that were basically influences that Amy talked about offline had these heavily driven scores and
Yeah.
soundtracks. when you talked about Lost Boys,
Yes.
talked about Buffy. Shoot, you can even bring up the Scream franchise, the first two, because the first two had big soundtracks, which aren't even a
Yes.
thing anymore, which I think is horrible. But also, just given the fact, were there anything that you basically detailed to yourselves creating this book that you listened to sonically in order to create the creations that you made?
Amy, do you want to go first or?
Oh, you can go first.
Oh, okay. I think I went back to a lot of stuff that I probably listened to as a teenager because I was, very into Twilight, very into Lestat, very into Buffy and all this stuff. So, a lot of like Hawthorne Heights, probably, obviously Paramore. I did find a few new bands actually. I think there's one called The Sunday Sadness where they have like this very like gothic vampire Linkin Park thing going on. Just a lot of that. And then in issue two, actually, there's a scene where I drew direct inspiration from, I think, Twilight New Moon, but specifically there's a sound change where it's hearing damage by Tom York. And there's like these gorgeous visual cues. And like when you read issue two, I think you'll know exactly what I'm talking about because I drew direct like inspiration from that. And I sent it to Amy and I was like, this is the hearing damage Tom York scene translated into our comic. So I think
Mm.
you'll know it when you see it.
What about you, Amy?
Yeah.
Was there anything playing in the background when you were creating this?
100%. I usually actually start every project with a playlist, just for myself, again, to get vibes. And I like to listen to music. I'm not someone who can work with television on in the background because I'm too drawn to the dialogue. But if it's a song I've heard 1,000 times, like I can just pop it on a playlist. So I did end up actually growing a playlist that I think had almost 80 songs on it by the time we were done with this. Because I've wrapped the third script. Um, and each issue kind of had a couple of theme songs. Like again, like Savannah said, there was a lot of like a Paramore, especially, and songs from like the Twilight franchise. I did have the Buffy theme song. I definitely had Cry Little Sister and Lost in the Shadows from
Yes,
the Lost
yes.
Boys. But then also just a lot of my other kind of like moody, edgy music. And very specifically, I'd say the first issue, the two theme songs for me were Supermassive Black Hole by Muse, because that
Yep.
is that's the song everybody kind of memes from Twilight. Like that's the baseball scene and everybody remembers that. But also The Killing Moon by Echo and the Bunnymen, which is also like the theme of Donnie Darko, I think. I
Mm.
just love Echo and the Bunnymen in general. But that had that kind of like I don't know, creepy. The lyrics are about like kind of meeting an inevitable fate, but it's a little bit like recognizing it and not being too afraid of it. Like it's fate up against your will. So those were my like lodestones for issue one, and the other issues have other theme songs as well that I don't want to give away here. But yeah, I had like a massive, massive playlist for this. I just love pairing music again, like
Yeah.
Savannah said, because we don't get those musical beats in um comics. But if I can digress for a second, one of the coolest instances of like people blending that and like asking the reader to do a little extra work. I remember when the Hawkeye series by Matt Fraction and Davida Yaw had
Yeah.
like playlists at the back, but Witchblood by Lisa Sturl and Matthew Ehrman, and Lisa Sturl did one of our variant covers. Actually had an issue that had an editor's note that said, "Hey, if you get here and you're so inspired, put on this song because it's like a barroom fight and there's a jukebox that gets smashed into,
Oh,
and they
I
said
love
put on
that.
this song, and for like the next 6 pages, that is the soundtrack." And so like I actually went and did that, and it was really cool.
So if IDW is paying attention and listening, look, if a playlist can be concocted in relation to this as it releases, you basically brought up at least 12 to 14 songs already. You
Yeah,
could,
and if and you know what, if IDW's marketing team has been fabulous. If this is one too many things on their plate, I will definitely try to make
you
a
know,
playlist that people can check out. I don't want to put my public playlist up because it does have some spoilers in it, but I will make a recommended listening list when we hit September 9th.
right. So every good mystery has red herrings. How careful were you about planting clues that reward rereading?
You know, that's really interesting because I've barely gotten to a point where I can actually then go back from the start and like reread it. So
Mhm.
it's when you sit with a mystery for so long, like I start to get worried that things are too obvious. Um, But like again, knowing what I know as I write it, I feel nervous about that. However, that's something that I think will come through in the dialogue.
Yeah.
I think a lot of dialogue in issue one will have a different meaning by the end of issue three, which is fun to like put those moments in, even if they don't like it doesn't change anything that was said in that moment. But uh, it was something that I wanted to be mindful of. I hope people get so excited to reread. And yeah, I think there will be a lot of moments that are recontextualized then upon a second reading of noting the different behaviors and the motivations behind the characters. So yeah, it was definitely something that was being considered. It wasn't something me sitting there going like, because the way that this worked out, there were elements of issues two and three that changed based on like things that I wrote into issue one. And like
Yeah.
it was very interesting. Like again, constructing a mystery, it was never 100%. I mean, we had like point A and point Z, and it was like the things in the middle were able to change. And I actually had an alternate ending planned at some point that I was like, I don't want to spring this on Riley, but I had an idea. But it was
Got you.
I had enough clues to justify for myself, like if we needed to change the ending, here's how this could work. So a lot of it was fluid throughout, but we did have like point A to point Z, the North Star of like the guiding motivations, and we know how we're going to get there.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. And again, those alternate universes, like I know what versions of the characters did not end up on the page, and that's fascinating. But ultimately, I think the best version of all of that ended up in our three issues.
Definitely. Savannah, now, how do you visually distinguish a scene meant to feel nostalgic from one meant to feel kind of unsettling?
Ooh, okay, interesting. I think working from an unsettling, I like to really think about camera angles and just like unsettling perspectives of like over the top views or underneath views, thinking about like the Kubrick stare, just like how to make things unsettling and make you feel like you're not on the same like level ground as the character, and how that kind of unsettled the reader. Or even just like putting yourself into the place of the main character, unsettling you that way. And I think for nostalgia, it's a little bit easier just to like make things a little bit, like if I have an outside scene, I'll make things more floral. Maybe it'll be like a flower that comes back in the future, and then you can connect it to like a younger version of that character. Like different clothing cues. Like I'm always saying like costuming is a different form of storytelling. Like with each character, I try to really put a lot of thought into their clothing and how they wear it and how that says so much about them. And just like for like a technical comics thing, like a lot of nostalgia scenes, like the gutters will be blacked out. And so
I
you'll know it's a flashback.
got you. Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent answer.
Yeah.
Now, the concoction of everybody that basically was a part of this cast in the beginning, whether it's David, Summer, Patrick, Miguel, there's the unshaken PR exec, Marisol.
Mhm.
Now, even though that there is an impending incident in the beginning of the book,
Mhm.
it's almost like she is the unshaken person in the room that has to get everything back together. What is her drawback or point of view within this entire book, within the first issue?
Amy,
You
do you want to
know,
go first? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. She was an interesting one to create because we actually went back and forth very much about me and Riley, and then Heather Antos, senior editor, because she also oversaw some of the beginnings of this, discussing again what was her motivation beyond a paycheck. And so we built her history with the characters. Um, and again, I wanted her to be someone who exists both in the fandom and outside of it at the same time, but not to the same degree as a famous actor who, like, especially as we see with some of them, like this might have been their most famous gig. Like no matter what they tried to do to escape it, like this was probably their defining role. Do they
Mhm.
like that? Do they hate that? Mari is one of the people who like she has to keep the actors in check. She has to keep the fans in check. She is a bastion between these two sides and the public and the private. And so she's at this terrible intersection of like, yeah, you walk into the house that you've just booked for filming, and you've been with this cast for 10 years, and so you have an expectation of how things are going to go, how the fans are going to react, and also there's a dead body like 12 hours before you begin filming.
Right.
That was also, you mentioned earlier, Scream. That was one of my spiritual inspirations for this as well. Like, again, when I go back to like horror movies and things that have a commentary about the world in which they exist and like the fandom, I was like, there's no better thing to homage lightly than Scream. And so I loved the lead character fake out where we have a girl who looks like Taylor, and that's not an accident that it's someone who looks like Taylor, again, starts the book with a crime. She is breaking and entering in this space that she feels entitled to as a fan. This is part of our fandom. This is a house that, you know, is going to be used for this anniversary event and blah blah blah. And so she breaks and enters and unfortunately is met with some swift consequences for it. Not the typical legal recourse for a breaking and entering, but
Yeah.
so then to have Mari come in, I also wanted to again set up this fun intrigue of like, what is her motivation for telling everybody that this is fine, that she has it under control? Does she really have it under control? Like, I don't know if she knows. Like she was such a fascinating character because she's at the axis of every like fan versus actor, private versus public. And then we've got our nosy newscaster who she's also, really just trying to keep everybody on the same page and with the same story, and everybody loves a good story, so she's going to spin it how she needs to.
True. Now, also, even in I would say in the same breath, the Blood Mountain cast had their own tragedy that basically happened. So even though everybody is reliving this 10-year anniversary and going through this whole reunion process, being at Blood Mountain for this specific event, they're even almost creating like these vigils that is there based on a stunt double for
Mhm.
Summer. Now, without going into detail, because all we saw was the vigil itself,
Mhm.
are we going to see basically what happened in issue 2 and 3 as to what happened to this one stunt double by the name of Elise?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to give away too much, but we are definitely going to revisit that trauma, and we're going to see the younger lives of the actors. So that was yet again Savanna doing the Herculean task of and the layers we have of like, we've got Lucy who is Summer, and we've got Kane and David, and we had all these like layers. So Savannah did design their younger looks, and it was not just so that we could have that one really cool movie scene that James did those amazing pink neons on.
Still my favorite
But
page.
we did, oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah.
That and the computer screen glow that he does is so phenomenal. But yes, it was very intentional that we do get to see their younger lives, and very specifically there are still movie scenes interspersed throughout the rest of the book, but we do get to visit with the actors on set when they were younger, and we're going to see um, how that impacted them. And again, kind of bringing that forward into like they are, whether they love it or feel trapped by this fame machine, like
Mhm.
there is so much wrapped up in the trauma of that. But it's like you also are like, this is what pays my bills. Like, and it may seem more glamorous to some than others, but like there's a definite interesting line to walk. And I've loved how we've gotten to explore that both again narratively and visually with like how they've changed over the course of 10 years. And it's funny to me because I was like, okay, so if it's been 10 years, they're in their 40s because we cast 30-year-olds to play teenagers, but
Mhm.
Right.
but Taylor and Karrah are closer to their 20s. We don't make it clear in the book, but like you do get to see different generations. And so it's like the actors are now in their 40s, and they're a little bit, jaded by some of this as well.
Now, how old were they when they first started the Blood Mountain series?
So it's weird because like the book would have had to come out sooner than 10 years ago. And that's where we get like, it's a book, but it's a movie. And this is specifically the movies. So they would have been like late 20s, early 30s. I didn't give them all specific ages, but basically they're roughly in their early 40s by the time we get to this event. So there's almost a 15, 20-year gap again between our lead girls, Taylor and Karrah,
Yeah.
and those actors as well. So there's also that kind of divide of like where you think you know these people because you've grown up with them. And so like the girls were younger, they were teens primed for that demographic when the books started coming out and then turned into movies. But you feel like you know these people and you've known them for a decade now. These actors, you can put the faces to the character names, but and we see Taylor getting a little maybe over familiar, maybe overexcited in that first issue as well. And so there's that divide of like, you don't know me, you know the fictional version of me that you have grown in your head as well. And again, that's a very important theme in this book.
Yeah. And also even the fact that fandom culture, of course, plays a huge role in this. But we talked about it, of course, briefly. Now, I'm sorry, Taylor actually has a more sort of an emotional timeline as to when she was reading the book. Her mother was also on the verge of passing, and
Mhm.
Mhm.
ultimately did, which is more so the reason why she's kind of like encased herself and why how this fandom has kind of engulfed her, not
Mhm.
consequently or anything like that, but we might see that a little bit later on. How did you basically try to like wrap your head around like the storyline of Taylor and basically because she is the person that won this contest and the story behind her as to what this series, the Blood Mountain series, means to her? How did that all basically build?
Savannah, do you want to talk maybe a little bit about like the
Oh,
visual
sure.
evolution?
Yeah. So, let me see. So with Taylor, I don't, are we allowed to say like, because I think it's cut out of the script, but we briefly discussed that, Taylor, just before she won the prize to go pretty much stay at the Bella Swan house, but
Yeah.
not quite the Bella Swan house, that she had just broken up with her boyfriend. That wasn't included in the script. And, but I
Okay.
always had that in the back of my head of like she's going through this hard thing, and so she's trying to find comfort from and Karrah's a long distance friend that does not live near her, so she doesn't have a lot of sources of comfort, so she's sort of gathering them to her. And so I tried to draw like a lot of moments of her with Karrah. I think Riley actually told me like Karrah and Taylor are holding each other's hands too much and getting like, holding like there's too many hugging scenes. Don't draw so many
I
hugging
got
Right.
that. I
scenes.
got that note in the script too. She's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, how else are these girls going to just,
Yeah.
have the best time of their lives together if they're not like constantly hugging each other? But yes,
Yes.
we did get a script note that it's like, let's maybe find other interactions that they can
Gotcha.
have than
Yes.
that. Um, yeah, no, that was that was so funny.
That's
Um,
funny. I
yeah,
did have to be careful because I didn't want to accidentally, even though I wanted to, like add like a queer subtext to it of like, oh, are they, aren't they? Like, that's nice and I love that, but I'm also like, I
perhaps
want
for
them
the
to
sequel
mutually,
series, if this book does
yes.
so well, we'll go into that later. But
Yes.
I think that's a necessary also part of like women in fandom and
Yeah.
but yeah, that's not their journey
Right.
in this ultimately. Um
And that's not what Taylor
and
needed in the moment either. Like she just needed a
yeah,
friend. She needed the book that she grew up with that got her through her mother passing. She needed the exciting experience of like getting to go to the town where like the movie was filmed. And like staying in the house and then oh my God, getting to meet the actors and this exciting experience and like getting to tiptoe the line between reality and fantasy that fandom allows and like knowing that you're safe. But then, uh-oh, is reality actually really safe? It's not. She finds out.
Okay.
yeah, and one of the more interesting parts to write then and to find the balance of, as we'll see in issues 2 and 3, because issue 1 was kind of about building Taylor up. um and we will continue to see a little bit more of that exploration of like why this means so much to her. It was intentional that her backstory dump happens on one page. As much as I would have loved to have more pages to flashback to that,
Yeah.
that is also a very real thing of this idea of I have now met the actress whose work is so responsible for saving me. I'm going to trauma dump on her really fast.
Ah,
And so, it was very intentional that we kept that to one page, but the impact of that and that notion will continue to come up, and she will continue to discuss her home life in the future issues. But like it was very intentional that she's like, hi Summer, oh my God, this is the first time I get to meet you, you're my favorite person, and also like I went through this extremely traumatic experience with my mom dying, and also I love your work so much. And you
True.
get to see Summer kind of be like, she's Summer has to grapple with that, and I'm
Yeah.
sure
yeah.
she's like, as an actress, she's had instances like that before too. Um but this is a unique one where it is more intimate, and like we don't we don't delve into the circumstances of what made Taylor win the competition, because I do think that that is not important. What is important is that she has won, and this is the circumstance that she is finding herself in. But I never specify whether or not she like actually had to do a video or if it was just a random sweepstakes. And again, that adds to that element of like, is she special or is this random?
Yeah.
Um, and so yes, Taylor's emotional journey is at the core of the book, and Karrah too. We get to see some conflict arise in issue 2, which was hard to write.
Yeah.
But again, as Taylor is confronted with increasing evidence that things are not as perfect a fantasy as it seems. How does she react? And that, that informs her fate. Like when you are met with like this thing that is I've built in my head to be my favorite thing in the world, might actually be a problem or might be dangerous. That's the challenge. And so we'll visually also get to see Taylor, beaten down a little bit by that. But it's a very interesting journey, and ultimately, you know, as a character, I could tell throughout like how much it meant to her, and using that as like, well, it's this important to her that she would end up doing this or she would react this way. And so that's her journey throughout the miniseries. And I don't know, we haven't really mentioned it, but it was so interesting to have to pace 100 pages into 3 issues.
Mm.
I've never done that before. And so
Yeah.
like even going, hey, that first issue is like 2 issues, I couldn't treat it like 2 separate issues that people would read months apart. I had
Mhm.
to treat it like 40 pages you are reading right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 30 and 30 for the remaining issues. So it was a very interesting journey to map as well and like make sure that was all paced for the readers.
I thought that was interesting, and I was wondering basically whose idea that was, because each of these, of course, are going to be released almost in kind of like a graphic novel format because they are about
Mhm.
40 or a little bit over 40 pages each. Now putting this almost in a graphic novel style and not having the, I guess, the random 22 to 26 page floppies that we normally see. Like
Not too many cliffhangers either.
no, we're getting right to the point. And the thing is, like, once you get to about like page 26, 27 of the first issue, you kind of see, be like, okay, this is not where I'm going to be at. This is where I need to get to. So
Mhm.
whose idea was it to actually like release it this way?
That was all IDW. That was uh, brought up to me after I had already begun the outlining of the process. And then they were like, "Hey, you know, I was working with them to develop that A to Z of all the characters, all the cast, all the what is going on." But then they were like, "Hey, it's going to be 40, 30, 30 for the scripting." And there's the back material and other things, but like in terms of the script that I wrote, it was 40, 30, 30. One of the cool things about that is despite how many pages, like those are all oversized issues, each one is 4.99. And so I think that was a marketing thing as well to see, would people be interested in reading? It's the same amount if you spread it out over 5 months, but it's more cost efficient and you get more story,
Yeah,
right then and there. And so especially for crime thrillers like Seven Wives and Killer Influences as well that are also launching the line, kind of that breakneck speed. You really need to make sure you keep audience interest because I think if we had to split this into 5 issues of 20, 22 pages, like people would forget maybe month to month, like, okay, who's Miguel again? Or
hmm,
Yeah.
what happened in the first, like, so it was very interesting. And it then, allowed me to do like, hey, let's spend a splash page, Savannah, let's put a
Mhm.
movie scene in here, or like, hey, we can give you a fake out opening with a fake protagonist who doesn't actually
Mhm.
last the whole book. And that was cool. I liked that they had Laura Knight do a variant cover that was inspired by that moment as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that, but it allowed for different types of moments to be brought into the story.
okay. Now, Savannah,
Mhm.
how early were the visual references developed for the fictional Blood Mountain franchise?
I think they started right away. I have a bunch of sketches of just like drawing like the made up like book cover for Blood Mountain and then
Hmm.
like the made up movie poster and just like it kept like diving deeper into like what did the characters look like? What were they wearing? Like we had a whole like discussions of different iterations of like what David the vampire like Edward like character was wearing like at first and he was like a grungy painter type
Yeah.
and they were like, no, like, can we give him like a trench coat? And like, we knew we wanted him to have sort of like this cool, like, Lost Boys, like, mullet kind of look, which I really liked.
I
Um,
specifically requested Billy Worth, who is my
yes.
favorite of the Lost Boys. He's the one who gets death by stereo. But he had the long black
Mhm.
hair, and it
Black
was just
hair.
like that's the Lost Boy I want. Because
Yeah.
also it's like if you can't do a blonde vampire in a trench coat. That's Spike, that's David. That's
Yeah.
like they've been enough blonde vampires in trench coats.
Yes.
So like we had to also distinguish those visually and make sure that we were yeah, and then it was interesting because even Riley was like, hey, when he's a grungier vampire, he's scanning werewolf, and we have werewolf characters in the
Yeah.
story. And so like we had to make sure that we were both playing to expectations, but not completely ripping off any one already established property, but like making sure people don't go like, isn't he supposed to be like a werewolf, kind of like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
Was there a scene that took the longest to get right?
Oh, let me see. Let me see. Can't think at the moment. I think maybe the crowd scene outside the bookstore just as they're about to go outside because it's a big overhead shot of a crowd waiting in line and there's police cars and then Taylor, Karrah, and Mari are outside and like waiting to be let in and I'm like, how do I even begin to organize this and like make it readable?
Mhm.
And but also like there's that moment of tension where like Taylor's going into the bookstore and the fans are kind of like, hey, why do you get to go in early? Like, what's so special about you, kind of thing. And just like I wanted to make sure it had the right beats of like she's so excited and then beat down all of a sudden and made to feel guilty for enjoying what she loves and like, getting the special treatment.
Yeah.
But then that also is quickly resolved by like, oh my God, the actors are right in front of me. So just like really quick moments of intense emotion and like how do I sort of plan that out on one page?
Yeah, and Amy, you were talking about Taylor's backstory. Was there any
Mhm.
other ideas that you loved that ultimately had to be cut?
You know, it's very interesting because there's a lot of stuff that it didn't necessarily get like there were very few things that completely got on left on the cutting room floor, but I think I alluded to earlier, Karrah was originally just the friend in the chair, and so Taylor was like remote texting her,
Yeah,
through a lot of the script. But that's not nearly as interesting as having her there and damn, her sense of style is so cool. Like it's one of those
right.
things where it's like Savannah created such a good like costuming language. Again, it felt like we were on a movie set, that it was just like, oh my goodness. I actually painted the Blood Mountain
Yeah.
logo on a jacket for myself. I'm gonna be wearing it at San Diego. The first official Taylor cosplay, I guess. But it was like because it was so cool and it was so instantly like like iconic. But there were a lot of ideas that evolved throughout, and like there were different pieces of like the school scene existed in different forms, and at one point it actually had the girls going inside the school and into that courtyard, but then
Yeah,
we pulled them back out because the scene wasn't quite working, and so we watched someone else hop a fence, and we again have that visual language of someone breaking boundaries in the name of what they love, kind of mirroring Laura in the beginning breaking into the house and doing those kinds of things, and then Taylor and Karrah kind of have this debate on like what is the right way to like engage with the fandom. Obviously they have special privilege this weekend. um yeah, there were maybe just a couple of other things that either moved around or had to evolve differently, but there was very
Oh,
little apart from like what Savannah alluded to, like the breakup, like it that the breakup wasn't enough of a compelling motivation, and so we changed that and evolved that into her backstory with her mother. um
I
and
do
so
remember originally for the first draft of the first issue, we had it starting out at a comic convention. Like Taylor was
oh
in her low
yes,
key
yes.
Lucy
Oh my
cosplay.
gosh, you're right. See, again, I
I was
forgot
so
because
excited to
there
draw that, but we
there
never got
is,
to.
I
Just a little
know,
bit.
there's an allusion to that in the third issue
Yes.
where I was like, "Hey, Riley, can we reuse some of these scenes?" But yes, the whole first issue began at a comic book convention, and I don't want to give away too much, but Taylor met someone from the movies early, and
yeah,
then it came back up when yeah, it was, I don't like to again too much about like what could have been on the page because again I think the best version of all the stories made it on the page, but the comic book convention does come back, and that's why I'm like,
Yes.
we didn't get rid of that. Like
Yeah.
it does happen because I my first San Diego was the year where Twilight had a Hall H panel, and so like I
Um,
remember that, like it was, I think it was the same year as Iron Man, so it was like, you were
oh
there for
eight,
Iron Man and you were there for
2008.
Twilight. Yeah, I think it was 2008. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Twilight was there that year.
Okay.
um and so like it was funny because like most people would know me as a Buffy fan, and like again I've got the Buffy pieces behind me. I had a Twilight phase in middle school, but like I actually tired out of it really quickly. I didn't end up liking the last book, and so I was just kind of like, all right, I'm done with this. Like that was fun. Like I moved on to something else. I think I moved on to Lord of the Rings at that point.
yeah.
But like so it's interesting again, but like I could pull from all of that. I still have pictures when my friends and I dressed up for like some of the midnight release parties or the movies or whatever. And so like a lot of that is very authentic in this book. Like just kind of remembering those things, and a lot of the like, oh my God, I'm in the filming location comes from the fact that they host a Buffy convention at the high school, at
Mhm.
Torrance High. And I've been there several times now. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is the tree that Giles walks into when Buffy admits that she overheard him in that episode where she had psychic thoughts. Like stuff like that. Like you have
Right.
to, it goes crazy. But like again, I feel like Savannah did such a good job of capturing that vibe and like having those characters be in those spaces. And then when we get to see it through the movie scenes as well, just like those moments of like, oh my God, like we're immersed in this. And again, James's colors come through and then just bring the reader into like this strange neon world. Um, but so like a lot of it like pulls from real like bits of
Yeah.
our fandom, and that's why I hope it's authentic, and again that no one comes away from this going like, wow, those two really hate people who are passionate about things. Like
Um,
that's not the point. Again, the crime is not loving something too much. The crime is thinking that cruelty is the same thing as love.
Yeah.
yeah. Now we talked big about character obsession, especially throughout the multitudes of influences of series and everything like that. Um, but within the book, is there a character that you hope that will become like a fan favorite for everybody, especially the readers?
Karrah. Absolutely Karrah.
Karrah.
Yeah. She's
Yeah,
my
I think
favorite, I
Karrah.
think.
Yeah, I she's so fun, and it's one of those things where it's interesting because like she loves this a lot as well, and we get to see what she loves about being, being in Vail and being part of her Blood Mountain fandom. But she also acknowledges that like this is Taylor's, like Taylor needs this a little more than she does right now.
Yeah.
Right.
She's happy to be a part of it, and
Protective.
so like yeah, and so we get to see a lot of that as well. And again, I think a lot of people are gonna enjoy Mari, the PR liaison. Um, one of my sleeper favorites to write though, because she was just so awful, was
Mhm.
That's
Reagan McLeod,
Oh
the
my
newscaster.
God.
Because like again with the Scream, like I was like, we need a Gale Weathers who is also that voice of like she's the one who thinks like, well, fandom is bad, and this is just a bunch of crazy young adults, glorifying the devil. Like, what is going on? But as Savannah mentioned with like cameras and stuff, that is such an interesting, like, as we were developing this book, we were like, there's a lot of cameras, whether it's a
Mhm.
cell phone camera or it's the news camera. And so, like, Savannah had this really cool way of framing a lot of things where it's like, pay attention to whether you are actually already looking at the screen, like you're looking through the screen camera, or if you're watching the camera filming someone else. Like it's very interesting. Like we have that with like the news crew comes out again in season two, issue two. And we get to see a lot of interesting moments where we're not standing with Reagan while she's being filmed. We're watching the film footage of her like delivering her news reports. So like it's just one of those cool things again that like I can maybe think of those types of things in a script, but it takes an artist going like, here's how I'd like to present this moment. And, again, as long as the key details that I need as the writer are there, like
Yeah.
that adds a whole nother dimension to what is going on with a story about, you know, fixating on things and looking at things.
Mhm.
Mm. Now, if Blood Mountain were a real movie franchise, what ridiculous piece of merchandise would every fan own?
I think I've already drawn it. I don't, maybe it was issue two. Am I allowed to
Issue
say,
two.
Amy? The guy with the
I
shirt?
don't
Am I
see
allowed
why
to say?
not. There's a yes, I think that's okay. It's not a spoiler.
Okay, okay. There's like this fanboy who like gets into like an argument with Taylor, and he's wearing like a pretty much like I don't know if you know the band like His Infernal Majesty, and it's the main singer, and he has no shirt on, and he's like digging his thumbs into his jeans so you can see like his V bones, like his hip
Oh,
bones. And I just drew like David like that on the shirt, and like it just says like Kane on like the sleeve, and it's just like the ultimate like I don't know if I can curse on this, but like
no, go
F
ahead.
boy like t-shirt. So we had a lot of fun with that. It's just like how
Well,
ridiculous can we get?
and on the Fang board in issue
Yeah.
one, you
Oh my
also drew
God.
those funny like side ads, and like
Yeah.
again, so much of the graphic design of like the language of the Fang board and like all of the screens and stuff. Like Savannah was really the driving force behind that. Like
Yeah.
I didn't come up with it, I'll come up with like the dialogue in the comments, but again, like the coffee shop board, like half of those jokes are theirs. But the Kane, the Team Kane underwear, or like the kind
Yeah.
of lacy, like that was so funny too. But honestly, from my experience, having purchased a an Edward Cullen cardboard cutout for my best friend's birthday at the time, I think people would probably also like it's the era of fandom that cardboard cutouts would be a piece of merch. Now they
Yeah.
do like those acrylic standees and stuff that are much
Yeah.
smaller and much
Mhm.
classier, but it's definitely like a cardboard cutout of Kane the vampire that you can put a Christmas hat on and like,
Yeah.
keep him around for every holiday.
But I love that too because it also adds another layer of language to we love this fandom, but we also get to
Yeah.
make fun of each other for
Yeah.
liking this fandom. Like one of my favorite moments between Taylor and Karrah in the first issue is they get into the house and they immediately start doing like dramatic reenactments of like Lucy and David, and they're just like,
Mhm.
"Oh, but David, I can't be with you. Oh, Lucy, I can't be with you." Like they're making fun of
Yep.
each other, but there's still love for it. So it's like just fun and like not like a like, oh, this is so dumb, this is so stupid. Like it's there's like respect for it while making fun of it at the same time, which I love.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now,
There may be people I think who approach the book and see them as objects of derision. Those are the people who don't understand the intricacies, I think, of fandom and like
Yeah.
especially like teen girls who have grown up,
yeah.
with that and now they're young adults who have some spending money. Taylor doesn't have a lot, and we'll again go into that in issue two, but
Mhm.
it's 100% done from a place of reverence, and then also me going like, oh my God, remember what I used to do in middle school like that? Remember that I
Yeah.
bought an Edward Cullen cardboard cutout for my friend and she hated it because it was terrifying and like she kept it behind her door. Like I think she liked it and it was funny, but like it was so scary. She kept it behind her door. She's like, I don't want a grown man in my bedroom. Like, what is this? So it's all done from a place of love. And I think it
Yeah.
also kind of tries to help date that these are fandoms that it was probably big in like the 2000s. Blood Mountain
Yeah.
was probably
Yeah.
like a very 2000s thing.
Well, I think you both be good at this. What fictional slasher franchise would each of you camp outside overnight to attend their reunion event for?
Oh my gosh.
It's a
Well, I
hard
mean, like I go to the horror conventions, and so like Scream, I've missed all of the big Scream reunions, but like Scream would probably be my big one. And it's not a slasher, but if this year's the 30th anniversary of The Craft, and no convention thought to get all three of the witches together,
Oh.
but if they did, I would have flown, across the states. I would have done any of that to go see the ladies from The Craft.
That's funny that you said the craft because now I'm thinking that Kara reminds me of
Oh yeah.
Rachel True
Rachel
of
True.
yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see that. I can definitely see that.
Good one,
And
Savannah.
and that you know what? There was a lost thread again. There were versions of this where like Savannah and I actually created more Blood Mountain lore than will ever have made it to the page. Like we just needed to know for ourselves. And there are witches in Blood Mountain. We didn't get to them, but they're in
Right.
there. And so like there was definitely some witchy vibes in the creation of the franchise as well.
Is there one for you, Savannah?
Oh, you put me on the spot. It's hard to think. I feel like this is part of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, but I remember being like, I don't know, 15 and just being really, really into Rob Zombie's The Devil's Rejects,
Yes.
yeah, I was really obsessed with that, so definitely that one.
Excellent.
Oh
Now,
yeah, Baby Firefly and
Yeah.
all that. Yep.
what?
And that's again, as soon as we got on Discord, Savannah and I figured out that we have pretty much the exact same taste in like all of these things, which made discussing again so many of the jokes and the visual language and the love of the
Yeah,
book just a absolutely
that's
natural
definitely.
collaboration.
I think what makes this work, but also even between the both of you, what's the strangest bit of research you did while making this comic?
Oh, I don't want to give too much away, but there is
Okay.
an incredibly scary natural phenomenon that happens with deer.
Oh,
That is it is actually the issue two cover was teased, but it is a basis for the a big scene in issue two. And it's very creepy, and hopefully people will look it up. We don't name it in the issue, but it's called Shedding Velvet, and that's all I'll say about that one.
Mm. Well, finally, why should comic readers who probably don't normally read crime comics give Fixation a chance?
Savannah, do you want to jump on that one,
oh,
or
sure.
I
Okay.
feel like I keep taking the
Just
taking the
trying to be
lead on some of
polite.
these, but
Let's see. I think because it comes from a place of honoring the fans and it explores a lot about what fandom is about and how much comfort there can be found in fandom, specifically vampire fandoms. because I feel like a lot of people who feel like an outsider or an outcast go to a vampire fandom and they finally feel seen. And fandom is a good place to explore maybe something you're not ready to say out loud yet that is about yourself, or like you need some help to process in a like an abstract way, which this lends itself to. And this is like a gentle invitation to, hey, remember when you were a goofy teenager and like you loved Twilight or Buffy and like something that made you feel seen, maybe when you weren't seen as a teenager, and
Yeah.
like how good that felt. And then like you know, through the eyes of a fan, exploring that fandom, the good parts and the bad parts, and just like what a wild ride we get to take you on. And because it's 40 pages, you get to fall in love with these characters, and then we get to rip them away from you. So
Oh,
enjoy that.
I want to say I think for the overall effort of IDW Crime, first of all, it's been such a privilege to be part of because I know, if you're looking at all of the books that have been released for this, there are no wildly established pros. There's no Scott Snyder's, there's no,
right.
Gail Simone's on this. These are an effort by IDW to highlight new and upcoming teams. I mean, we've got Zoe Tennell, we've got
Joey
V
Esposito.
Gagnon and Joey Esposito and Valeria Berzo and Teslin de I don't remember her last name, Teslin de Bourquois.
Got it
Again,
right.
with all of these, um, they are taking big swings with really unique formatted books in so many different, facets of crime. And I think that the crime genre, again, people think is like very elevated or they think it's only Brubaker, but it's one of these things where it's like it is as human as superhero comics are, where superhero comics go like, what if we take, a power fantasy and a wish fulfillment and explore human nature through that? Crime is the same, but swinging in the direction of either you want the justice power fantasy or the I can get away with anything power fantasy. But it's
Right.
all about human behavior. And so we've found these fascinating facets, and almost all of the books in some way relate to devotion. There is the true crime podcasting of Killer Influences. There is the religious devotion of Seven Wives. And then we've got the kind of more pop culture that is not true crime, but it's about to become true crime. Um, and then selfishly, I will just say people should read Fixation because Savanna is a goddamn miracle. Again, people would have probably only known their work before this from Sleepy Hollow, but I know that they are just about to explode into comics. It's such a privilege, and I feel selfish having all the art in my inbox where people don't see it until it hits the shelves. And I just really think that, like, again, to that testament of like how many new voices IDW is bringing into these books, like
Yeah,
you're gonna want to pay attention to Savannah. I swear, like come back to this video, in a couple of years' time. Like Savannah is amazing, and I just want to see. I want everyone to see what they and James with the colors are doing with this visually.
for sure. I
Well,
mean,
now I gotta shout you out, Amy,
No,
because like my debut was with Casey Gilly, who kind of like, you know, mentored me. It was like, it's okay, like this is how you do things, this is how like I'll help you communicate and like figure these things out. It was like such like a gentle hand into like this thing that I've been wanting for years and years. I've always wanted to do comics professionally. I just did them for myself for forever. And then to find out like Casey was like, oh, like Amy is great. I mentored Amy. So
yep,
just to land gently again, and then like Amy and I found out like we were born in the same year, so we're just like 90s babies like vibing. And
yep.
just like we completely mind melded. Like what a gift to work with a writer who knows the same lingo and the language as you, and like I could present an idea or in a drawing and she would immediately like have some like, throw something back at me, and it was just like it worked so fluidly working with Amy, like an amazing writer, like
well,
best team
Thank you.
ever.
I gotta agree. Definitely due to the collaboration between the both of you, the character designs and basically the way that this story base is pretty much formatted, it's completely thought out, and I love
Mhm.
that from a reader's perspective, especially given the signs of how real a lot of the characters are. They pretty much come to life on screen. You kind of feel the emotions as to what they're feeling, going through what they are. So I appreciate the both of you for basically taking your time and putting this book together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to IDW. Again, James, thank you for such thoughtful questions. And
Thank
again,
you, James.
like engaging with the material, like
Sure.
coming into the world of Blood Mountain and again being interested in that. Because again, that's what we're hoping to introduce everybody their favorite, vampire fandom that they've never actually experienced before. But I really appreciate you taking the time to also this is the first time I've been on a video with Savanna or been on a call. We've all been text communications up until now, so this has been a lot of fun too.
Okay, first off, what's wrong with y'all?
I know.
All right,
We're
so
My
we're
little
shy
nerds.
artists.
Yeah.
I'm glad to put faces with the names. So feel free to go back to this video as much as you like,
Yes.
so that you're able to pay
He'll be
attention.
like, remember when
Yeah.
James brought us even further together?
It was only right. All right. So, what is it? FOC is August 3rd. For fixation. So I would suggest now that today is the 21st. By the time this podcast comes out, probably be tomorrow. So you probably have like a good week and
Okay.
some change, of course, for everybody to get their hands on this. Pre-orders are a big thing in comics, people. I'm gonna try to yell that into the
Yeah.
echo chamber. But yes, and also September 9th, the book is going to be released to the public. It will be out there in your local comic shops for everybody to see. Shout out to
And you know what?
everybody. Oh, no, go ahead.
If this is coming out before San Diego and people are
It
headed to
will.
San Diego,
Yes.
I will be signing with Joey Esposito. We're doing an IDW crime signing on Saturday morning. I believe that's the 25th at 9:45 to 10:30 a.m. IDW booth 2729. They're going to have the IDW crime sampler, which is a really cool little book that they printed with the first 5 pages from each of the three crime books. So you can come and get some swag. I think there's also crime posters, maybe. I've seen a couple of those. So yeah, if you listen and you stop by, come to our signing because it's my first big publisher signing at San
Yay.
Diego Comic-Con.
Please go see
Thank you.
Amy.
Yes.
Thank
Now,
you. Yeah, please. And come see my Blood Mountain jacket.
Hell yeah.
for sure, because I mean that's going to be a treat. If it's a hot thing, you're going to have to make more.
Yes. We have to make
IDW, I'm
merch.
ready to talk merch.
We're also ready to talk playlists because we talked about putting this together sonically. If the
Yes.
book's going to come out, it's going to have a soundtrack to basically follow this whole thing up. We talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
All
Oh,
right,
you know what we need?
I will
We
make
need,
sure that happens.
We need hit clips for the playlist.
for real.
Make it perfect.
Oh my God. Talk about
That's
taking it back to
nostalgic.
the 2000s.
That'll be perfect. Let's just get some zooms out. Why not?
Oh.
All right. So for everybody here at the Facts Project, Savannah Mayer, Amy Chase, Fixation, as we talked about, FOC is August 3rd. Gets released in stores on September 9th for IDW Crime. I thank the both of you for doing this again with me. This was a fabulous conversation. I'm glad the two of you get to see each other for the first time, which I find to be utterly ridiculous, but that is absolutely that's great.
But that's a testament to how well our communications were going up until this point as well.
That's good. So for all of us here at the Facts Project, we thank the both of you, and we will see you guys next time. We are out.